Have you ever found yourself thinking about someone all day long? Does your mind constantly revisit a conversation or an encounter? Why do we let certain people dominate our thoughts, even when they aren't around? It's a common struggle, one that affects many of us, whether we're at work, at home, or even with friends. Overthinking about others can cause us stress and anxiety. But have you ever wondered how to stop it? Let's think about a simple example. Imagine you're at a family gathering and someone says something that bothers you. Your mind replays that moment over and over again, dissecting every word, every gesture. You start to feel upset, even though the situation may be over. This is what happens when we think too much about someone. We allow their words or actions to affect our peace. We get caught in a loop of thoughts that keep us from enjoying the present moment. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, where we explore insights from Buddhism to help us live a peaceful and balanced life. In this video, we'll dive into how overthinking about others can affect your happiness and how you can break free from it. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll have the tools to quiet those constant thoughts and regain your inner peace. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribe. So, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Let's begin the journey toward a lighter, more peaceful mind. In Buddhism, we are taught that attachment to others can be a source of suffering. When we think too much about someone, we become attached to them, and this attachment keeps us from living freely. Our minds get tangled in the web of other people's opinions, actions, and behaviors, and before we know it, we've lost our peace of mind. But the good news is, it doesn't have to be this way. Through understanding and practice, we can learn to let go of this attachment and find peace. Now, let's explore how to set our minds free. Why the mind clings to people. Have you ever noticed how your mind often clings to people? It could be a friend, a family member, or even a colleague. Sometimes we get caught up in what they said, how they acted, or how we think they feel about us. But why does our mind do this? Why do we attach ourselves so strongly to others, even when it's not helping us? At its core, this attachment stems from a deep-seated desire for connection. As humans, we naturally crave relationships, understanding, and acceptance. We want to feel important, loved, and valued. But this desire to connect can sometimes grow into an unhealthy attachment that clouds our thoughts and actions. We can get so absorbed in what others think of us, or what we think of them, that it becomes a barrier to our own peace of mind. Think about it. Have you ever felt nervous before meeting someone? Perhaps you're worried about how they'll perceive you, or if they'll like you. This fear can be so strong that it affects your mood, your behavior, and even your health. It's like carrying a heavy weight on your shoulders for no reason at all. The truth is, this weight doesn't come from the other person. It comes from our own thoughts, our own fears, and our own expectations. In Buddhism, we are taught that attachment creates suffering. When we get attached to people, we begin to rely on them for our happiness. We depend on their approval, their affection, or their presence to feel okay about ourselves. And when they aren't around, or when something goes wrong in the relationship, our minds can spiral into worry, anxiety, or sadness. This is how attachment can lead us to suffer. We tie our happiness to someone else, and when that connection is threatened, we feel lost. But the mind doesn't just cling to people for the sake of attachment. Sometimes, we are drawn to certain people because they remind us of our past. Maybe they're similar to someone we loved, or someone who once brought us joy. Or, they could be someone who challenges us, and we feel the need to prove something to them. Whatever the reason, the mind holds onto these relationships like they're essential to our identity. Now, let's ask ourselves, what would it be like to let go of this need for constant validation from others? What would happen if we stopped tying our worth to someone else's opinion of us? It's not easy, but this is exactly what Buddhism encourages us to do. By understanding that our happiness does not depend on others, we begin to free ourselves from the constant pull of attachment. Let's take another example. Think about a time when you were in a conversation with someone and their words hurt you. Maybe they said something that made you feel small or rejected. It's natural to feel upset in the moment, but when we replay those words over and over in our minds, we allow that moment to define our mood, our day, and sometimes even our entire week. The more we think about it, the more the pain deepens. The person who hurt us may have moved on, but we continue to carry the weight of their words. This is how the mind clings to people. It holds on to past moments, past hurts, and past expectations. But what if, instead of holding on, we could let go? What if we could stop allowing someone else's words to control our emotions? This is where the practice of mindfulness comes in. By becoming more aware of our thoughts and feelings, we can begin to detach from them without letting them take over. In Buddhism, mindfulness is a powerful tool for breaking free from the cycle of attachment. Mindfulness teaches us to observe our thoughts without judgment, to see them for what they are, just thoughts. They are not who we are, and they don't define us. When we practice mindfulness, we can recognize when our mind starts to cling to someone, and we can choose to release that thought instead of holding on to it. This practice takes time, patience, and consistency, but with each moment of awareness, we become more free. Another reason our minds cling to others is fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being alone, or fear of rejection. We often think that if we let go of this attachment, we will lose the connection, the love, or the friendship we have with that person. But the truth is, real love and real connection come from a place of freedom, not attachment. When we let go of the need to control or possess someone, we open up the space for genuine love to flourish. It's like a flower that blooms when it's given the right conditions, not when it's held tightly in our grasp. Now, let's consider another common situation. Have you ever had a disagreement with someone, and then found yourself thinking about it for days or even weeks afterward? You replay the conversation in your mind, imagining what you could have said differently or what they might have been thinking. This is another example of how the mind clings to others. Instead of letting the moment pass, we hold on to it, thinking about it long after it's over. But in doing so, we miss out on the present moment. We miss out on new opportunities, new experiences, and even new relationships. Buddhism teaches us that everything in life is impermanent. Relationships, emotions, and even our thoughts are temporary. They come and go, and it's natural for them to change over time. The key is to understand that nothing lasts forever, and therefore, there's no need to cling to it. When we let go of our attachments, we allow ourselves to experience life as it truly is, free from the weight of the past and the fear of the future. In the end, the mind clings to people because it seeks comfort, validation, and control. It wants to feel secure, loved, and accepted. But the more we attach ourselves to others, the more we give up our own peace. Buddhism encourages us to seek inner peace, not from the approval of others, but from our own understanding of ourselves. When we stop relying on others for our happiness, we begin to discover a deeper, more lasting joy, one that doesn't depend on anyone or anything outside of ourselves. So, how can we start to let go? The first step is awareness. Recognize when your mind is starting to cling to someone. Notice the thoughts that come up, the emotions they bring, and the ways in which they affect your peace of mind. Once you become aware of this pattern, you can begin to practice letting go. With each passing moment, you can choose to release the attachment, and in doing so, free yourself from the mental clutter that weighs you down. The illusion of attachment. Attachment, in its simplest form, is the mental bond we create with people, objects, or ideas. It seems harmless at first, doesn't it? We love our family, we cherish our friends, and we hold certain beliefs close to our hearts. These attachments feel natural, even necessary for a fulfilling life. But have you ever stopped to wonder, could these attachments be holding you back? Could they be causing you more pain than joy? The answer might surprise you. In Buddhism, we often speak about the illusion of attachment. It's an illusion because, in reality, everything is temporary. Our relationships, our emotions, our possessions, they're all fleeting. Nothing stays the same forever. Yet, we act as if these things will last forever, and in doing so, we create attachments that only bring us suffering. Let's consider this with a simple analogy. Imagine you are holding a beautiful flower in your hand. The flower is vibrant, colorful, and fragrant. You hold it with love, thinking it will bring you happiness. But as time passes, the flower begins to wilt. The petals fall, the color fades, and the scent disappears. If you continue to hold on to it, you will only experience sadness, as the flower can never stay the same. It's not the flower's fault, nor is it yours. It's simply the nature of things. Everything changes. The same applies to people. We hold on to relationships, expecting them to remain unchanged forever. We think that by loving someone deeply, we can control how they behave or how they treat us. But just like the flower, people change. They grow, they make choices, and sometimes they move away from us. When we cling to the idea that a relationship will always be the way we want it, we set ourselves up for disappointment. We must accept the impermanence of all things, including the people we love. Attachment often comes from a place of fear. We fear that if we let go of someone or something, we will lose a part of ourselves. We fear that we will be alone, unloved, or unimportant. These fears are natural, but they are also rooted in misunderstanding. The truth is, letting go of attachment does not mean losing love. In fact, it can bring us closer to others in a more genuine, freeing way. Consider a tree for a moment. A tree's branches sway in the wind, bending and moving with the forces around it. The tree does not fight against the wind. It doesn't cling to its branches as if they are the source of its life. Instead, it allows them to move, grow, and change. The tree knows that each branch has its time, and when it falls, the tree will grow new ones. The tree's strength is not in holding on but in its ability to adapt and let go. Now, think about your own life. How often do you cling to people or ideas out of fear? How often do you hold on to relationships that no longer serve you or continue to worry about someone's opinion of you? These attachments can weigh heavily on your mind, causing stress and anxiety. You begin to lose sight of who you truly are because you are too focused on others. You forget that the key to happiness lies in your ability to detach, to accept the impermanence of things, and to trust that letting go will make space for something better. It's important to recognize that detachment is not the same as indifference. Detachment does not mean you stop caring for others or stop loving them. It simply means you no longer rely on them to complete you or define your happiness. It's about finding peace within yourself, regardless of external circumstances. When you detach, you become free. You are no longer controlled by your desires, your fears, or the opinions of others. You are simply yourself, at peace with who you are and where you are in life. But how do we practice detachment? The first step is mindfulness. When we are mindful, we become aware of our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them. We observe our attachments and notice when we are clinging to something or someone. This awareness is the beginning of freedom. Once we are aware of our attachments, we can start to loosen our grip. We can remind ourselves that everything is temporary and that it's okay to let go. Another important practice is meditation. Meditation helps us cultivate inner stillness, allowing us to observe our thoughts without reacting to them. When we meditate, we create a space between ourselves and our attachments. We can sit quietly and simply breathe, noticing the thoughts that arise but not getting caught in them. Over time, this practice strengthens our ability to detach from the things that cause us suffering. The key is to practice regularly. Detachment is not something that happens overnight. It takes time, patience, and consistent effort. But with time, you will begin to notice a shift. You will feel lighter, more at peace, and less affected by the ups and downs of life. You will realize that you don't need to hold on to anything or anyone to feel complete. You are enough, just as you are. As you continue this journey, remember that attachment is not inherently bad. It is a natural part of being human. The problem arises when we let our attachments control us, when we allow them to determine our happiness. The goal is not to reject attachment completely, but to find a healthy balance. We can love deeply, but we must also be willing to let go when necessary. We can cherish relationships, but we must not allow them to define our worth. We can enjoy life's pleasures, but we must remember that they are not permanent. In the end, the illusion of attachment is a reminder that nothing in life is fixed. People come and go, circumstances change, and even our own feelings shift over time. But by practicing detachment, we free ourselves from the suffering that comes from clinging to the past or fearing the future. We embrace the present moment, knowing that it is all we truly have. So, the next time you find yourself thinking too much about someone or holding on to something that no longer serves you, remember, you don't need to cling. You don't need to control. You only need to let go and trust that life will unfold as it's meant to. By doing so, you will find true freedom, the kind that comes from within, not from the people or things around you. Let go and allow life to flow. How overthinking creates suffering. Overthinking about others may feel like it's part of being human, but it's not necessary. You see, our minds are designed to wander. It's natural for us to think, analyze, and reflect on things that matter to us. But when it comes to other people, overthinking often leads us to suffer unnecessarily. Why does this happen? Let's explore. Imagine for a moment, you're at work and a colleague gives you a strange look. Immediately, your mind starts to race. What did I do wrong? Did I offend them? What does this mean about our relationship? The more you think about it, the more your mind gets tangled in a web of questions and worries. Before you know it, you're stressed, frustrated, and even angry. And none of this is based on anything real. It's all in your head. This is how overthinking works. It takes a simple moment, like a glance or a comment, and turns it into something much bigger than it really is. Your mind becomes attached to that thought, and it starts to spin in circles. The more you dwell on it, the more suffering you create for yourself. You may even feel a sense of insecurity or anxiety, even though there is no real reason for it. In Buddhism, we learn that our thoughts are not the same as reality. We may think something is true, but that doesn't make it true. When we overthink, we are reacting to our own thoughts, not to actual events. We are projecting our fears, doubts, and insecurities onto situations that may not even require such a strong reaction. And this is where suffering begins. The more we attach ourselves to these thoughts, the more we allow them to control us. Now, consider this. When you stop overthinking, you give yourself the chance to experience things as they really are. Instead of jumping to conclusions about what others think of you, you can simply observe. You can let go of your assumptions, and in doing so, you allow your mind to be free. Freedom comes from understanding that our thoughts are not always trustworthy. They are just thoughts, they do not define us, and they do not have to control us. Overthinking also feeds into our desire for control. We often want to understand everything, know exactly what others are thinking, and predict how every situation will unfold. But the truth is, life doesn't work that way. We can't control what others say, do, or think. We can't control every situation. The only thing we can control is our reaction to it. By focusing on our own actions and thoughts, we regain power over our own peace of mind. But letting go of overthinking is easier said than done, right? How do we stop our minds from spiraling out of control? How do we stop ourselves from getting caught up in a whirlwind of thoughts about others? The answer is not in forcing our thoughts away, but in allowing them to come and go without attaching to them. In Buddhism, we call this practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment. When we are mindful, we observe our thoughts without judgment. We recognize that thoughts come and go, but they do not define us. When we practice mindfulness, we don't get caught up in the story our minds are telling us. Instead, we simply notice the thought and let it pass. For example, when you catch yourself overthinking about someone, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and observe the thought. I'm thinking about that person again. You might say to yourself, instead of diving deeper into the thought, simply acknowledge it and then let it go. You can focus on your breath, on the sounds around you, or on the task at hand. The key is to shift your attention away from the thought and back to the present moment. It's important to remember that mindfulness is a practice. It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes time and patience. But with consistent practice, you'll begin to notice a shift. Slowly, you'll find that you're not as attached to your thoughts about others. You'll be able to observe them without getting caught up in them. And as you do this, you'll experience less suffering and more peace. Another way to reduce suffering from overthinking is by practicing compassion, both for yourself and for others. When we overthink about someone, we often imagine the worst. We assume that others are judging us or that we've done something wrong. But in reality, everyone is dealing with their own struggles and insecurities. They may not be thinking about us as much as we think they are. Understanding this can help us release the grip of overthinking and open our hearts to compassion. When you practice compassion, you allow yourself to let go of judgment. You stop assuming that others are judging you or that they have some hidden agenda. You see them as human beings, just like you, with their own fears and uncertainties. And when you do this, you create space for empathy and understanding, which in turn reduces your need to overthink. The truth is, when we stop overthinking, we create room for peace. We stop letting our minds run wild, imagining every possible outcome, and instead, we trust the present moment. We trust that everything will unfold as it is meant to, without our constant interference. And by doing so, we free ourselves from the unnecessary burden of overthinking. This isn't to say that we shouldn't think at all. Thinking is a natural part of being human, but there's a difference between thoughtful reflection and excessive worry. Reflection is helpful. It allows us to learn from our experiences and grow. But excessive worry about others, especially when it's based on assumptions, only causes suffering. So, how can you practice this in your everyday life? Start by becoming aware of when you're overthinking. Notice the patterns in your thoughts. When you start to worry about someone or imagine a situation, ask yourself, is this thought based on reality? Or is it just my mind creating a story? Challenge your assumptions, and if you find that your thoughts are not grounded in truth, gently let them go. You can replace them with thoughts of kindness, gratitude, or simply focus on what's happening right now. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to break free from overthinking. Over time, you'll find that your mind becomes quieter, more peaceful, and more present. You'll stop allowing other people's actions or words to dictate your emotional state. Instead, you'll find yourself more grounded and content, regardless of what's happening around you. And remember, this is a journey. It's not something that happens all at once. But with every step you take toward letting go of overthinking, you're one step closer to a life of greater peace and freedom. So, take a deep breath, trust the process, and know that you are on the right path. Practicing detachment through mindfulness. You see, when we think too much about someone, we are often lost in a whirlwind of emotions. Our mind gets trapped in cycles of judgment, regret, or even desire. The more we think about others, the more we lose touch with the only thing we truly control, ourselves. But how do we break free from this endless loop? How can we practice detachment and find peace? The answer lies in mindfulness. Mindfulness is a simple yet powerful practice. It means being fully present in the moment, without letting your mind wander to past events or future worries. When you practice mindfulness, you train your mind to observe, rather than react. You learn to witness your thoughts without attaching to them. When someone or something triggers you, instead of instantly jumping into a story or judgment, you simply notice the feeling and let it go. This is where the magic happens. Instead of allowing your mind to be consumed by others, you take control and create space between your thoughts and your actions. Think about the way you breathe. The air comes in, and the air goes out. It's a natural, effortless process. But when you focus on your breath, you notice the way it feels, how it moves in and out of your body. You become aware of each breath without trying to control it. This is how mindfulness works. You become aware of your thoughts without trying to change them, without clinging to them. You simply observe, and in doing so, you create the freedom to choose your response. It's like watching a cloud float by. You don't try to hold on to it, you just let it pass. Now, how does this apply to thinking about others? It's very simple. When you think about someone, notice the thought. Acknowledge it, but don't hold on to it. If the thought brings up anger, sadness, or anxiety, observe those feelings too, but don't identify with them. You are not your thoughts, and you are not your emotions. They are just temporary visitors in your mind, and they will pass. This is the power of mindfulness. It teaches you to detach from the emotions that arise when you think about someone, and instead, you stay grounded in the present moment. One of the most common reasons we think too much about others is attachment. We want people to act a certain way, to treat us a certain way, and when they don't, we get upset. But attachment leads to suffering. It's a simple truth. When you expect something from others, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. People will always surprise you, and not always in the way you expect. But when you let go of attachment, you stop placing expectations on others. You allow people to be who they are without trying to control or change them. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you free yourself from the need to control their actions or opinions. Imagine a river flowing calmly. The water moves freely, without resistance, adapting to any obstacles in its path. Now, imagine trying to stop the flow of the river or change its direction. It would be impossible. The same is true for your mind. When you practice mindfulness, you allow your thoughts to flow naturally, without resistance. You don't force them, you don't chase after them, and you don't cling to them. You simply let them come and go, and in doing so, you experience peace. But how do we cultivate this mindfulness in our daily lives? One effective way is through meditation. Meditation is like training your mind to be calm, clear, and focused. You can start with just a few minutes each day. Sit quietly, focus on your breath, and whenever your mind starts to wander, and it will, gently bring your attention back to your breath. It's a simple practice, but it requires patience and consistency. Over time, you'll notice that your mind becomes calmer, and you'll find it easier to detach from unnecessary thoughts about others. Now, let's take a moment to talk about how this affects your relationships. When you stop overthinking about people, you create more space for genuine connection. You no longer carry the weight of unrealistic expectations. Instead, you can approach your relationships with an open heart, free from the burden of attachment. When you let go of the need to control, you make room for love to flow naturally. You can appreciate others for who they truly are, without trying to change them or get something from them. This leads to more meaningful, peaceful, and fulfilling relationships. Another key aspect of mindfulness is forgiveness. When we think too much about someone, especially in a negative light, we often hold on to grudges. We get stuck in a loop of resentment, and it's hard to move forward. But when you practice mindfulness, you begin to see the bigger picture. You realize that holding on to anger or hurt only causes you pain. It doesn't affect the other person. Forgiveness is not about excusing someone's behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the negative emotions that tie you to them. When you forgive, you let go of the mental chains that keep you bound to the past. You set yourself free. In Buddhist teachings, mindfulness is often described as a way to end suffering. When you practice mindfulness, you begin to understand that your suffering comes from your attachment to thoughts and feelings, not from the external world. By cultivating mindfulness, you learn to let go of attachment, and with that, you release your suffering. The more you practice, the more you'll notice a shift in your mindset. You'll start to feel lighter, more peaceful, and less affected by the actions of others. So, how do you begin this journey of detachment through mindfulness? Start by becoming aware of your thoughts. Pay attention to the moments when you're thinking too much about someone. Notice how your emotions rise and fall in response to those thoughts. And remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer. With each passing moment, you have the choice to let go of the thoughts that don't serve you. You can choose peace over pain. You can choose freedom over attachment. The more you practice mindfulness, the easier it becomes. Let's go back to that river for a moment. When you let go of attachment, you become like the water flowing freely. You move through life with ease, no longer weighed down by thoughts of others. You experience life as it is, not as your mind thinks it should be. And that, my friend, is the key to finding peace in the chaos of the world around you. When you practice mindfulness and detachment, you learn to navigate life with calmness and clarity, no matter what others may do or say. In the end, practicing mindfulness is about letting go of the need to control and embracing the flow of life. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of your own thoughts and emotions. It's about living in the present moment, fully alive and aware, without being weighed down by the past or worried about the future. Through mindfulness, you can find the peace you've been searching for, and you can learn to let go of the need to think too much about anyone. Letting go without losing love. When we talk about letting go, it's easy to think we are being told to forget people we care about or distance ourselves from those we love. But this is not the case. Letting go does not mean that we stop caring. In fact, it allows us to care more deeply and with greater wisdom. In Buddhism, we learn that attachment is the root of much of our suffering. However, we are also taught that love is different from attachment. Think about this for a moment. You have a friend or family member whom you care about deeply. You might even feel that your happiness depends on their happiness. But if something goes wrong, if they change or if circumstances shift, you start to feel anxious. You worry about losing them, and you begin to think about them constantly. This is attachment. Attachment makes us fear change, fear loss, and fear being without those we love. It creates an emotional dependence that clouds our minds and makes us feel heavy. Now imagine letting go of that weight. What if you could love someone fully without feeling like their actions or presence determine your happiness? What if your love wasn't tied to fear of loss but was simply pure, free, and flowing without expectations? This is the freedom that Buddhism teaches us. Love that does not come with chains. True love is rooted in freedom, not in the need to control or hold on to someone. Let's break this down with a simple analogy. Imagine holding a glass of water. The glass is filled with your love and care. If you hold on to it too tightly, the water can spill. But if you hold it gently, it remains secure, and you are still able to enjoy the water without losing it. This is what we mean by letting go without losing love. By gently holding your love and care, you allow yourself to experience it fully without the fear of it slipping away. We must learn that the people we love are not possessions. They are beings who are on their own journeys, and so are we. When we stop trying to control their actions, emotions, or decisions, we give them the space to grow and change. And we give ourselves the space to grow as well. It's a balance, caring deeply without suffocating the other person or ourselves. It's important to understand that letting go is not about giving up on love. It's about learning to love without clinging. Clinging is like trying to hold on to something that is constantly changing. If you're holding tightly to a leaf in the wind, it will fly away no matter how hard you try to keep it. But if you gently allow the leaf to go, you can enjoy its beauty in the moment, without suffering when it is gone. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is impermanence, the idea that everything changes. People change, situations change, and even our own feelings change. This is the natural flow of life. When we accept that change is inevitable, we can stop clinging to the idea that things must stay the same. This acceptance brings peace. We can love others without the fear of losing them, because we understand that everything, including love, is part of the flow of life. Another important idea in Buddhism is the concept of non-attachment. This doesn't mean that we don't care about people or that we don't invest emotionally. It means that we don't tie our happiness or our sense of self-worth to the presence or actions of others. When we are attached, we begin to see the other person as a source of our happiness or sadness. But when we practice non-attachment, we realize that our happiness comes from within. We are not dependent on others to feel complete. Let's reflect on a simple story that illustrates this principle. There was once a young monk who was very close to his teacher. He followed his teacher with great devotion and learned many things. But one day, the teacher told the young monk that it was time for him to leave and continue his journey on his own. The young monk was heartbroken. He didn't want to let go of the teacher because he feared that without him, he would lose everything he had learned. But the teacher smiled and said, "My dear student, you don't need me to carry what I have taught you. You already have it within you. You have learned how to live with wisdom and peace. Now, it is time for you to find your own path without clinging to me." The young monk hesitated, but eventually understood. He let go of his attachment to the teacher and set off on his own journey. Years later, he returned to visit the teacher, and they both smiled, knowing that the student had learned the most important lesson: that true love and wisdom are not dependent on one person, place, or moment. Letting go, then, is a journey of self-discovery. It's not about losing the people we love, but about freeing ourselves from the chains of attachment. We learn to be present with others, to enjoy their company without needing them to stay the same or fulfill every need we have. We can love with an open heart, without fear. This does not mean that we stop caring about others, or that we become cold and distant. It means we learn to love without the weight of expectations, without trying to control how others feel or behave. We love freely, without condition, and in doing so, we create deeper, more meaningful connections. In Buddhism, this practice is known as metta, or loving-kindness. It is the practice of offering love and compassion to all beings, without expecting anything in return. It is unconditional love that flows from our hearts, not because we want something from the other person, but simply because we wish them well. When we let go of attachment, we are free to offer this kind of love. We no longer seek to possess or control the people we care about. We simply allow them to be who they are, while we remain grounded in our own peace. So, how can you practice letting go while still loving deeply? Start by recognizing the difference between love and attachment. Notice when you are holding on too tightly to someone or something. Ask yourself, am I loving this person or am I attached to them? With awareness, you can begin to release the attachment while still holding the space for love. In the end, letting go without losing love is about freeing yourself from the fear of loss. It's about trusting that the love you give will always return to you, even if it doesn't look the way you expect. It's about understanding that change is part of life, and that real love flows freely, without clinging to the past, the future, or the present moment. This is the path to true peace and freedom, the path where we can love, let go, and remain unshaken in our hearts. Understanding impermanence in relationships. When you look at the world around you, everything is changing all the time. The trees, the sky, the seasons, everything. Nothing stays the same, not even for a moment. We call this impermanence, and it's one of the core teachings in Buddhism. But do we understand how it applies to our relationships with others? Think about your closest friendships or family bonds. How many times have they changed over the years? People move, grow, change, and sometimes drift apart. But when we think about relationships, we often hold on tightly. We want things to stay just as they are. But holding on too tightly to people or moments can make us suffer. Why? Because everything is always in a state of flux. Impermanence isn't just about the big changes, it's in the small moments too. Think about how you feel when you meet someone new. At first, there is excitement, curiosity, and joy. But over time, the newness fades, and you start seeing things more clearly. Some relationships grow deeper, while others may lose their spark. Sometimes, people change in ways that no longer align with who you are. That's when the idea of impermanence hits us hardest. The relationships we once held so dear might feel different, and we might feel confused, hurt, or sad. But remember, this is just part of life's flow. In Buddhism, we are taught that trying to hold on to things or people that are meant to change only leads to frustration. Everything in life is temporary. That doesn't mean the relationships we have aren't important or valuable. They are. But understanding that they are not permanent helps us enjoy them more fully, without the weight of expectation. We can love and care for others, but we must do so with the understanding that nothing lasts forever. This doesn't make the relationships any less meaningful. It actually deepens our appreciation for them. Think of the people in your life, the ones you're closest to. Now, consider this. How much have they changed over the years? And how much have you changed? When we stop clinging to the idea that people should remain exactly the same, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding. We stop forcing things to stay the same, and we can enjoy the beauty of the present moment with them. Now, you might wonder, if everything is always changing, how can we find stability in our relationships? The key is acceptance. When we accept the impermanent nature of life and relationships, we can let go of our expectations and live with peace. We stop holding on to how we think things should be, and instead, we embrace how they are. Imagine a river flowing. The water moves constantly, never the same for long. But if we try to stop the flow, we cause resistance, and the water will not move freely. The same is true with relationships. If we try to hold on too tightly, we create resistance, and the relationship can no longer flow naturally. But when we allow the relationship to evolve, we experience it fully, without fear of change. When you meet someone new or form a connection, instead of focusing on how long it will last or what the future will hold, focus on the present moment. Appreciate them for who they are today, not for who you want them to be in the future. This doesn't mean that we don't plan for the future or care deeply for the people around us. It simply means that we free ourselves from the burden of expectation. Buddhist teachings encourage us to practice mindfulness in every moment. This mindfulness helps us see the impermanence of everything around us. By focusing on the present, we stop overthinking about the future or the past. When we stop worrying about what's going to happen or what has already happened, we open ourselves to deeper connections. We can love more freely, without the fear of losing someone or something. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine a friendship that has lasted for years, but over time, you begin to notice that things are different. Maybe your friend has moved to a different city, or maybe their interests have shifted. At first, you might feel sad or frustrated. Why can't things just stay the same? But when you understand the truth of impermanence, you can approach the situation with peace. You realize that the bond you shared was valuable because of the time and experiences you had, not because it stayed exactly the same. This realization allows you to let go of any expectations and accept the changes without resistance. You can still cherish the memories and appreciate the connection, even if it's different now. When we understand impermanence, we stop trying to control relationships. We stop trying to force things to remain exactly as they were. Instead, we learn to let go of our attachment to the way things should be. This doesn't mean we stop caring or loving others, far from it. It means that we love with an open heart, knowing that change is inevitable, and we embrace it instead of fearing it. Understanding impermanence is not about being detached or cold. It's about being fully present, appreciating every moment, and recognizing that every relationship, every experience, is a gift, no matter how long it lasts. The beauty of life lies in its impermanence. The fleeting nature of everything makes each moment precious. So, when you think about your relationships, remember that their value is not in their permanence, but in their ability to teach you, to bring joy, and to help you grow. The next time you feel anxious or worried about someone changing, take a deep breath and remind yourself, everything is temporary. This understanding allows you to move through life with grace and acceptance, making the most of every moment you have. Embrace the impermanence of your relationships, and you will find peace. The power of mental stillness. Our mind is like a busy river, constantly flowing with thoughts, feelings, and worries. Have you ever tried to stop that flow? It seems impossible, right? Thoughts keep rushing in, one after the other, like waves crashing on the shore. But what if I told you that there is a way to calm this river? A way to quiet the mind and find peace, even in the middle of chaos. This is the power of mental stillness. Mental stillness doesn't mean that we stop thinking altogether. That would be impossible. Instead, it means learning to control our thoughts, to observe them without getting caught up in them. It means creating space between each thought, so that we can choose which ones to focus on and which ones to let go of. When we practice mental stillness, we become the observer of our thoughts, not the prisoner. In Buddhism, we often hear about mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment. It's about observing our thoughts, our feelings, and the world around us without getting lost in them. By practicing mindfulness, we can quiet the endless chatter of the mind and find stillness within. This stillness is not something distant or unattainable. It's always there, waiting for us to notice it. Imagine you're sitting by a lake. The water is calm, the air is still. Now, think about your thoughts as if they are the ripples on the surface of the water. When the water is calm, you can see clearly through it. But when the water is disturbed by wind or movement, the surface becomes blurry and chaotic. Your mind works in a similar way. When you allow your thoughts to run wild, your inner world becomes murky. But when you practice stillness, you can quiet the ripples and see clearly. Let's take a moment to explore how this practice works. Start by sitting quietly in a comfortable position. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, filling your lungs with fresh air. Exhale slowly, releasing any tension in your body. Now, simply notice your thoughts. Don't try to stop them, just observe them, like clouds passing across the sky. Some thoughts may be loud, while others are soft. Some may linger, while others quickly disappear. The key is not to get caught up in them. Let them come and go, without judgment. At first, it may feel difficult. Your mind may race with thoughts about the past, the future, or things you need to do. That's okay. It's completely natural. The practice of stillness is not about perfection. It's about learning to be present with whatever arises. With time, you'll begin to notice that the thoughts that once seemed so urgent and overwhelming begin to lose their grip on you. The more you practice, the quieter your mind becomes. But why is mental stillness so powerful? When our mind is still, we can access a deeper level of wisdom and clarity. The noise of everyday life fades into the background, and we can hear the quiet voice of our true self. In this space of stillness, we can make decisions with greater ease, experience greater peace, and respond to life with more compassion and understanding. We become less reactive to external circumstances because we are no longer controlled by the constant barrage of thoughts. Instead, we act from a place of calm and clarity. Now, you might be thinking, but what about all the distractions around me? How can I find stillness when life is so noisy? It's a valid question. Life is filled with distractions. Our phones, our work, our relationships, and even our own emotions. But the secret is that stillness is not dependent on the outer world. It's something we cultivate within, just like a storm can rage outside, but you can still find peace in the center of the storm. You can find stillness within yourself, no matter what's happening around you. Buddha once said, "You cannot travel the path until you have become the path itself." This means that stillness is not just something you do. It's something you become. It's not a technique you use for a few minutes each day and then forget about. Stillness is a state of being, a way of living. When you make stillness a part of your life, it begins to shape everything you do. You respond to others with patience, you make decisions with wisdom, and you experience life with greater ease. So, how can you begin to practice stillness in your daily life? One of the most powerful ways is through meditation. Meditation is a practice of sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without judgment. It's a time to connect with the present moment and let go of the distractions that pull you away from it. But meditation is not the only way to find stillness. You can practice stillness while walking, while eating, or even while washing dishes. The key is to bring your full attention to the present moment without letting your mind wander. Another powerful tool for cultivating stillness is breathwork. Focusing on your breath is a simple yet effective way to anchor yourself in the present moment. When you breathe deeply and consciously, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to calm the mind and relax the body. Take a few moments each day to focus on your breath. Inhale deeply through your nose, hold it for a moment, and then exhale slowly through your mouth. As you do this, notice how your thoughts begin to slow down, how your body relaxes, and how a sense of peace washes over you. It's important to remember that the practice of stillness takes time. Just like any new skill, it requires patience and consistency. Don't expect to be perfect right away, and don't judge yourself when your mind wanders. The key is to keep practicing, to keep returning to the present moment again and again. Over time, you'll find that stillness becomes more natural, and your mind will begin to quiet on its own. Mental stillness is not a state of emptiness or detachment. It's a state of presence, of being fully alive to the moment, without distraction or overwhelm. It's the place where clarity, peace, and wisdom reside. When you cultivate stillness, you tap into a deeper level of being, one that is not influenced by the chaos of the world. And when you learn to live from this place, you'll find that life becomes much more manageable, much more peaceful. So, take a deep breath, let go of your thoughts, and simply be. The power of mental stillness is available to you right now, in this very moment. Will you choose to embrace it? The choice is yours. Achieving emotional freedom. In life, we all go through ups and downs. We experience happiness, sadness, anger, and frustration. But sometimes, we hold on to these emotions for too long. We carry them with us, and they affect how we think, how we behave, and even how we see the world. But what if you could let go of these emotional burdens? What if you could free yourself from the negative thoughts that weigh you down? The truth is, you can, and it's not as hard as it seems. Think about it. When something bad happens, how often do you replay the situation in your mind? Do you keep thinking about what went wrong, or what someone said, over and over again? When we let our minds dwell on past experiences, we let them control us. We allow these thoughts to shape our mood and our actions. But when we learn to free ourselves from these emotional chains, we can experience true emotional freedom. Buddhism teaches us that emotions, like all things in life, are impermanent. They come and go. If we don't hold on to them, they fade away naturally. Just like clouds passing through the sky, emotions will rise, but if we don't cling to them, they will disappear. Imagine living without carrying the weight of your past emotions, without allowing them to control you. Wouldn't that feel like a breath of fresh air? The key to emotional freedom is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, without judgment. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice our emotions as they arise, without becoming attached to them. Instead of letting anger or sadness take over, we simply observe them. We acknowledge them, but we don't let them dictate our actions. We become the observer, not the prisoner of our emotions. Let's say you're in a situation that triggers anger or frustration. Instead of letting these emotions overwhelm you, take a deep breath. Notice how your body feels, how your mind reacts. Don't judge yourself for feeling angry. Just observe the sensation and remember, it's temporary. It's like a storm that will pass. The more you practice this awareness, the less power your emotions will have over you. One of the most powerful tools for emotional freedom is the practice of letting go. In Buddhism, we learn that attachment to our emotions is what keeps us stuck. When we become attached to anger, sadness, or any other emotion, we create a cycle of suffering. But when we learn to let go, we break that cycle. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It simply means not holding on to them. It means allowing them to come and go without being controlled by them. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, but with time, you will start to notice a shift. You will become more resilient, more peaceful, and more at ease with yourself. Life will still bring challenges, but you won't feel as weighed down by them. You will begin to see your emotions for what they are, temporary visitors that come and go. And the more you practice letting go, the less you will be affected by them. One important thing to remember is that emotional freedom doesn't mean you won't feel pain or sadness. These emotions are a natural part of life. It's okay to feel them, but when you don't attach to them, when you don't let them control your every thought, you create space for healing. You give yourself the freedom to move through life with more peace and clarity. Another way to achieve emotional freedom is by changing the way you think. Our thoughts often create our emotional states. For example, if you constantly think about a past mistake or a hurtful comment someone made, you will continue to feel the pain associated with that memory. But when you change your thoughts, you change your emotions. If you focus on the present moment, on what you can control, and on what brings you joy, your emotions will shift in a positive direction. The practice of gratitude is also a powerful tool for emotional freedom. When you focus on what you are thankful for, it becomes harder to dwell on negative emotions. Gratitude shifts your perspective and helps you see the good in your life, no matter what challenges you may be facing. It reminds you that you have so much to be grateful for, even in the midst of difficulties. It's also important to remember that emotional freedom is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about giving yourself the space to feel them without letting them take over. When you suppress your emotions, they only build up and explode later on. But when you allow yourself to feel without judgment, you create a healthy emotional release. You give yourself permission to experience life fully, without fear of your emotions controlling you. In Buddhism, there is a saying, "You are not your emotions." This means that your emotions do not define you. You are not your anger, your sadness, or your fear. You are the observer, the one who experiences these emotions, but you are not controlled by them. When you understand this, you realize that you have the power to choose how you respond to your emotions. You can choose to let them go, to observe them without judgment, and to move on with your life. The journey to emotional freedom is a continuous one. It's not about reaching a final destination, but about learning to navigate life with more awareness and presence. It's about becoming more in tune with yourself and understanding that you don't have to be controlled by your emotions. You can live with more peace, more joy, and more freedom. And it all starts with the simple act of letting go. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed by your emotions, remember, you don't have to hold on to them. You don't have to let them control your life. With practice, you can achieve emotional freedom and live with a lighter heart. It's within your reach. All you need to do is take that first step, living with a light mind. Conclusion. At last, we come to the final step in this journey of freeing ourselves from overthinking about others. You've learned so much, haven't you? You've learned that overthinking causes suffering, and you've discovered that the way out is through mindfulness, detachment, and understanding the impermanence of everything around you. Now, let's bring all this wisdom together and explore what it means to live with a light mind. A mind that is not weighed down by worries, judgments, and attachments. Living with a light mind means you are free. Free from the chains of your thoughts, free from the weight of expectations, and free from the need to constantly analyze every little thing others say or do. This is true freedom, the kind that allows you to live in the moment, to embrace each experience as it comes without the burden of overthinking. Isn't that something we all want? To feel light, to feel free, to feel at peace? But how do you live with a light mind? It starts with awareness. You need to become aware of your thoughts and how often they are influenced by others. You need to notice when you're starting to overthink. When someone says something, or when a situation arises, pause, breathe, step back from your thoughts. Don't let them control you. Don't let them weigh you down. This awareness is your first step toward freedom. Once you notice your thoughts, you need to let them go. That's the next step. It's so simple yet so powerful. Let go of the need to overanalyze. Let go of the need to hold on to people's words and actions. They are not yours to carry. They do not define you. When you let go, you allow yourself to feel lighter, freer, and more at peace. You see, attachment is the cause of our suffering. We hold on to people, their actions, their words, and it creates a heavy burden in our hearts. But when we understand the impermanence of all things, we realize that nothing lasts forever. People will come and go. Conversations will end. Situations will change. Everything in this world is temporary. And when we let go of that attachment, we free ourselves from the cycle of suffering that overthinking creates. Think about it for a moment. How much energy have you spent overthinking about someone in the past? How much time have you lost worrying about their opinions, their actions, or what they might think of you? Now, imagine if you had that energy for something else, for yourself, for your growth, for your happiness. You can have that energy, but you need to make the choice to stop overthinking, to stop holding on to others. It's all about choice. When you choose to live with a light mind, you choose peace. You choose to focus on the present moment. You choose to embrace life as it comes, without fear or judgment. And in doing so, you create a life filled with joy, calm, and clarity. A life where you are no longer weighed down by the worries of others, but instead, you live fully in the moment, appreciating the beauty of each experience without overthinking. This is the essence of Buddhist wisdom, to live in harmony with the world, to accept things as they are, and to free yourself from the attachments that cause suffering. When you let go of the need to overthink about anyone, you create space for true happiness. You open your heart to the present moment, where peace and joy reside. It is here, in this moment, that you find the freedom you've been searching for. So, what can you do now? Start practicing these teachings today. The next time you catch yourself overthinking, remember to pause, breathe, and let go. Remind yourself that your thoughts are not you, and they do not have to control your life. You have the power to choose peace, to choose freedom, and to choose a light mind. As we end this journey, remember, you are not alone in this. Every step you take toward living with a light mind is a step toward greater peace, not only for yourself but for the world around you. The more people who practice these teachings, the more we can create a world where overthinking is replaced with mindfulness, where attachment is replaced with freedom, and where suffering is replaced with peace. Let's all choose to live lighter, freer, and happier lives. Don't carry the burden of overthinking anymore. Live in the present, let go of unnecessary thoughts, and embrace the beauty of life as it is. It's time to live with a light mind. And remember, there are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of people subscribe. So please, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Woven. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, share your experiences, and let's continue this journey of wisdom together.